Welcome to the Gifford Youth Achievement Center. So happy to have you to join us, and what I plan to do is give you an overview of what we do, what our mission is all about, and how you can become a mouthpiece for us also in the community as you spread the great news about the miracle on 43rd Avenue. I'd like to start out just by identifying an individual who had a great influence on what we do here at the Gifford Youth Achievement Center. His name was Dr. William Nye. He was the former pastor of Community Church there in Vero Beach. And man, he was only 51 years old when he passed away, but he had wisdom like a 70 or 80-year-old. He was really wise and really saw fit that our agency like this be committed to helping our children to change their academic level. Believe it or not, during that particular time, in 1996, it was found that the African American students' graduation rate had dropped from 92% all the way down to 23%. And we knew we couldn't sit around and just wait for nothing to happen. Couldn't wait on federal government, state government, local government. We had to do something ourselves. And I'm so happy to see that this particular gentleman joined in with Mr. Dan K. Richardson, who's a great philanthropist in Indian River County. He's passed away now, but he was really instrumental, as well as Dr. A. Ronald Hudson, area pioneer and educator here in Indian River County. I'm going to give you a little overview of how this whole thing came about. In 1996, a gentleman by the name of Paul Purkell, he's with Conrad Purkell Studio, called me because he heard about a group of people meeting at Mr. Richardson's place out on 90th Avenue in Gracewood at that time. And they were talking about building a facility that would help that graduation rate to do better. So he calls me and said, "Freddie, I want to donate a window." And I said, well, he could have said, "You want to donate 2 left shoes?" I still would have said yes. But he said he wanted to donate a window, and I didn't know the magnitude and the detail of this window. I thought it was just going to be a regular square window you put into the facility. But little did I know, he came out and he said, "Freddie, this is a prototype of what I want to make." And it's a small little markup. And he said, "What I need to infuse into that window little entities, separate entities of pictures, so that all around that window it will bring credence to the term or old proverb, it takes a village to raise a child." This is that village, and this is what this village is made up of. Let me start out first by saying why in 1969 we had a 92% graduation rate dropping to a 23% graduation rate. That was the integration mandate brought forth. So you must integrate the schools. You must close Gifford High School, which is 1969, and move your students over to Vero Beach High School where they would graduate. That was my senior year. My senior year to leave Gifford High School and go to Vero Beach High School was 9 months. Little did we know that Dr. Sammy A. Hunter, who was our principal, put into us the will to succeed regardless of where you're located. Don't talk about leaving Gifford. Don't talk about going to Vero. It could be anywhere in the world. You should be prepared because we've given you everything that you need to be successful. So he came into the last convocation we had, and football players, everybody were crying, talking about their schools gone and weeping and wailing, and you could have took a rowboat and rowed down through the gymnasium. There was so much water coming from these guys and girls' eyes. And all of a sudden we heard a gentleman's voice come across the PA system saying, "Cut the crying out!" Everyone jumped. Who was it? It was our principal. He said, "Lift those heads up. Stop acting as though you have nothing in your toolbox of life. We've given you everything that you need, that when you walk toe-to-toe with anybody, you'll be able to compete on any level. So you know when you do your best, so you go over to the school or wherever you're going from this point on, and you do the best that you can do." And man, we pull our shoulders back and we marched over to Vero Beach High School, and we did do very well. I wish we had videoed that particular episode, because if we had video it, that means the 6th graders on back to 1st grade would have heard it. They didn't hear that. And we didn't know that was going to be so profound as the time went by, because we began to see dropping off of students, just dropping out of school, dropping out, to that graduation rate went down. So Dr. A. Ronald Hudson was assistant superintendent at that particular time, and he came with some demographics to show us how we see where we are, but we know we want to get back to. And he showed us that, and that's when this whole process began. And this window here sort of is the foundation of how everything came together. Paul Purkell came to me and said, "Here's the window. read this article in Time Life magazine. And the article is called Voices of Triumph. And it was an article about the African people rather, how resilient they've been over thousands and thousands and thousands of years, and they're still passing on that rites of passage to their young people, male as well as female, teaching them that you grow from one stage of life to another stage. There's a ritual brought forth and you move on with prior to the next step. We need to continue to incorporate into our students right here in Indian River County to help them, let them know that you move from childhood to adulthood. That should be a change of lifestyle. You shouldn't do childish things anymore. When I was a child, I acted as a child. But when I became a man, I put away childish acts. And that's exactly what we're doing here at the Gifford Youth Achievement Center. This particular woman here has a lot of colors and designs and shapes. And when I first saw it, I immediately thought about the dashiki. You remember the old dashiki? The dashiki was the big sleeve, like covering here that had your big afro and your bell-bottom pants, your clogged 2-inch heels. And Jane Brown had a song out during that time called Say It Loud. I'm black and I'm proud, and you black and you're proud. I had an afro about that big, by the way. I was walking through a door and turning it sideways and making sure I made it through. But the beauty about it, the pride was there. And that pride go hand in hand with wanting to succeed, wanting to be better than your last generation, wanting to continue to move up on the social skills of life. So this one has a lot of meaning other than the colors. Take for instance, the diamonds here. They are symbolic of the diamond mines there in Africa. Letting you know you came from a continent that is rich with resources and different types of ores you can find right there in Africa. Also, you have a shade of green. The green is a no-brainer. That's nature. Understanding if we take care of nature, nature will take care of you. The African people got their timber to build their huts, medicine, water, food, you name it. They knew if I take care of nature, they'll take care of me. The shades of blue can be indicative of both the sky and the beautiful waterways around there. So they tell me there's some ponds and rivers so clear that you can actually look 40 feet down and actually see the fish. That's my kind of fishing pole. Oh yeah, that's another one over there. I love that. The shades of yellow, light intensity or heavy intensity. It's the source of all life, whether plants or animals. We need that vitamin D. You need to be strong. I'll never forget the time I went to my mom's house and talked to her, and she hadn't been out a couple of days. When the last time you've been outside? She said, well, about 2 or 3 days. I said, that's your problem. Put your straw hat on, get your clippers, go out and cut your flowers, and I guarantee you feel better. Sure enough, a few days she felt better. So when you look at this whole window unfolds into a story of passing on a legacy, passing on heritage. And that's what we've fallen short. We allow now the television and videos to raise our children more so than verbal communication, eye to eye, doing great things. And then when I told the story the first couple of times, I did pretty good, I thought. You know, I went from my bass up to a tenor, but when I got to the red, my voice dropped back down to a bass. And I thought I did a good job. I was straightening the room up, getting ready for the next tour, and all of a sudden I heard the window say, Freddie. I said, wait a minute. I am not crazy. This one that didn't call my name. It did it again. It said, Freddie. And I realized it was the window. He said, you did good up until you got to the red. Your voice went from a bass up to a tenor. But it dropped when it got to a red. It should have dropped when it got to a red. Well, it had to drop because I felt sad to know that it didn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that this red evidently was those who were shipped over from Africa as slaves. And they died. They were stacked on top of each other. And they were in inhumane conditions and surroundings. It really made me sad. He said, I don't want you to make you sad. That should make you strong. Because you wouldn't be standing where you are now if we weren't strong. So for now, don't you ever tell that story in a melancholy state, allowing your voice to drop down to a bass. Matter of fact, your voice should have went to a soprano. I said, I understand exactly what you mean. So I don't tell that in any type of sad state because he's right, because they were descendants of princes and kings, mathematicians, voyagers, astronomers, you name it. So we don't ever look at that as being a downtrodden part of life, but an uplifting foundation that keeps us moving forward. And finally, when you look at this whole outside periphery, as I mentioned before, these pictorials, each entity has a part of that village concept. I thought Hillary Clinton came up with that because she wrote a book called "It Takes a Village to Raise a Child." Now, that's an African proverb which has been around thousands of years. What is that village you talk about? It's the cultural arts, whether it's music, drama, opera, dance, rap music, country music, you name it. And here at the Gifford Youth Achievement Center, we afford these children the opportunity to have exposure to a menu, a buffet of activities. We bring in Riverside Children's Theater, we bring in athletics, we bring in Marty Fish Foundation. I mean, I can go on and on. We have 40 different agencies that partner with us here to make sure that those children have a choice. Don't give them a tunnel vision effect of life, but instead give them a choice. They can look and say, yes, I want to be an astronaut. So we bring in astronaut Winston Scott to talk to our kids. I want to be a basketball player. So we bring in Dara Armstrong used to be on Orlando Magic. So give them an opportunity to dream high and really sort after those things. The next thing is schools in the community. That's the Baston River Sharks. See the little shark there? Also, we have the churches in the community. These men and women of the cloth who preach in these different edifices each Sunday or Saturday or whenever they do, have an awesome task. Not just talking about the biblical context, but also taking that biblical context, converting it over to everyday vernacular so that every man, woman, boy, and girl can leave out of that particular church service with knowledge of how can I apply that to my life and make me a better person morally. Next is the teachers. When I was in school, back in 69, 70, it was the 3 R's: reading, writing, arithmetic. There's no longer 3 R's now. They have driver's education in there, have sex education thrown in there, they have mandates coming from the state of Florida, they have things coming from the federal government. All these things coming down on those poor teachers, they can't teach the way they used to. And you see the end result of those kids not learning the way we learned when we were back in school. I never forget the example. I was in Walmart, young girl cashier, and I bought my item and my item came to $1.62. I gave her $2. I said, you owe me 38 cents back. She said, how did you do that? I said, do what? Come up. She said, wait a minute. She hit the calculator and finally 10 minutes later she said, you were right. I said, I knew that 10 minutes ago. Give me about 32 cents. So it shows you that we've gotten so accustomed to using gadgets instead of using our brain. But here at the Gifford Youth Achievement Center, we are teaching them an old-fashioned way how to use your brain. Moving on to the next part, you have school teachers. You have also medical field. That's a 14-year-old girl having a baby. Should not be. She should be playing lacrosse, basketball, football, anything but having a baby. But since she had that desire to make that mistake of making a choice to have a baby at a young age, we're not going to leave her out there alone. Instead, we're going to give her support. At one point, we had a program here where we actually did bring that 16-year-old mother in and that 16-year-old young boy in and actually give them some counseling, giving them the opportunity to start a resume and put together how to do an application. Now, I tell them our application should not be left blank, 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 because that's you, that's your life. So that application has to be filled out completely. So we teach them how to put together the application and a resume. I don't have a resume, I don't have any experience. Yes, you do. Write your name for me. They write the name down. It's beautiful. The penmanship is spectacular. So put on that resume, have great penmanship. Read this paragraph for me and tell me what you read. They read that paragraph. And after they read that paragraph, give me back, what did you read? They tell you almost verbatim back, all the points and everything. So they have great comprehension skills. I said, that's what your resume is all about. Painting the picture of who you are and what you can bring to the table. Not being a liability, but being an asset to that company. As we move around, you see basketball and then you go football. Actually, kids, what do you want to be when you grow up? The first thing you're going to say, a professional athlete. I was a dream killer until 4 years ago. I went to a workshop and they taught me, said, you can't kill the child's dream. If they say they want to be a professional athlete, you agree with them quickly. But I wasn't agreeing. As soon as they said, I said, no, you don't. And you can see me zap the energy right out of their eyes if they drop their head. Not good anymore. I tell them, I say, that's great, but what is your plan B? And they looking like a deer stuck in the headlights. Say, what do you mean by plan B? Plan B, if you were to get hurt or you get traded or you can't find a job in that arena, what would you do? What would you fall back on? I said, you become a nurse practitioner, you can become a physical therapist, you can work in the business part of the office, you can do all those great things. And they say, yeah, I can. So now when I ask them, what do you plan to do in the future? They say, I'm going to be a professional athlete, but I'm also going to have a degree so I can do other things in other arenas. So they got the point. That's the main thing. So our charge here at Gifford Youth Achievement Center. And by the way, we changed our name a year or so ago from the Gifford Youth Activity Center to the Gifford Youth Achievement Center, because the first 18 years we needed a lot of activities. That menu I talked about, that buffet, they can choose and feel good about themselves. Now we get some achievements, so our name should resemble what we are doing, achieving great things. So we get them through high school on to college and vocational training also, because we have different scholarships we offer. Those individuals want to go off to college, they come in here, they volunteer in our facility, they'll be able to qualify for that scholarship, and all we ask that they do is report back to us how well they're doing, make sure that the grades reported to us, and we can move forward with keeping them assisted. But the vocational scholarship is brand new. You don't have to be 18 here at the center. You can actually be out in the neighborhood. Say you're 23 years old, just had a hard time financially, but you need $500 to finish your CNA training. Come and put an application here. So that's open to the general public to come in. Very important. That's mom and dad and the children. Beautiful family. That's a three-legged stool. That reminds me of my family. My wife and I, we have 3 kids, and every now and then when the economic climate kind of takes the nosedive, we feel a little bit of it, yeah. When Florida Power goes up on their light bill, or when the car payment, it has to be paid, a little instability comes there. But that's a 3-legged stool. So if instability comes with a 3-legged stool, what happens with a 2-legged stool? Wow, it's really unstable. And that's what we have. 70% of our parents, our children that come here, come from 7% come from single parent homes. Either the aunt, the grandma, or the parent, one parent is raising that child. So that's a lot of instability. So here at the center, we said we want to become that third leg. Well, how can you become the third leg? What magic wand do you have? Our magic wand, we serve winners. Well, how do you know a winner from a loser? When you walk through those doors and say, I want to find out what I can do with the Indian River State College courses they offer here. I want to make sure I get my GED. I want to move on to another level. Then hear that parent who once had 2 or 3 jobs, now they have 1 job as a phlebotomist, or working in a doctor's office, or open up their own daycare. You can get your CDA right here through the college. And Dr. Massey has said since day one when we opened the facility that he wanted to be a part of this great, great miracle on 43rd Avenue. And that's exactly what we're all about. Talked about Vero Beach High School already. The last bullet here, next 2 here. The first one is the library. When we first opened up the Gifford Youth Achievement Center, there was no library in Gifford. So the students who came from Gifford and given assignments couldn't get to the library 4 miles in Vero or 13 miles in Sebastian. So what could they do? Well, they may not complete their assignments. So we lobbied the county commission, asked them to come in and help us to establish a library system here. They said, if you build the building, we'll supply the books and the personnel. That's exactly what they're doing now. So we have a librarian here, county pays her salary, let's keep the books fresh and rotating. The same card that you use here at Gifford, you can use it in the main library or in Sebastian. I think that's a great accomplishment there. And the last picture here is the sciences. Getting our kids back into the sciences and the writings and those things, those math subjects, not just basic. Those foundational subjects that will help you to build upon to become that lawyer, that doctor, that engineer, that teacher, and even a smart housewife, because sometimes they leave out housewife. That's an occupation, in my opinion, but a lot of ladies put forth that effort. Putting those things all together, I like how he depicts that individual there. That individual is not just standing around with their arms down to the side, but notice the hand motioning. That hand is reaching for high heights. But notice the other hand. The other hand says, I will not let go of that which I've attained already. I have this, I want this. And one day the feet motion will move forward. This hand will close while this hand opens. This hand will close while this hand. So all during your life, you have continued education and you can be the best that you can be. And that's the end of my story.
Good job.
Okay.
Freddie, nice. Very nice.
You live it, you love it.
Oh my goodness, that was really nice.